This is a map of where my soldier, George Howard, had fought.
George attended school yearly since the age of 6. Because he was an only child, he was most likely expected by his parents to fight in the war.
George was in Vermont's 16th Infantry. He was a farmer, born and raised in Vermont.
In George's home life, he was a farmer in Londonderry. George was a big farmer, like many other people, because in Vermont, there was a lot of land, not many people, so we didn't really have many more options for occupations, like working in a store, for example. As you can tell from this image, farming back then was much different and much harder than today. There was no hoses or tractors. That's why these people have a bucket to collect water, and something we rarely see today, a hoe that has been replaced by the well-known tractor produced with our 21st century technology. And to assure that George was a farmer, I looked up his census record on Ancestry.com, and it said his occupation was farming. George and his family were not rich, and were on the poorer side, but that was normal for many people back then, because homes were typically small and were shared with relatives, as you can see in this painting. Along with sharing homes with family, many households had multi-purposes for a single room. Like I mentioned before, houses weren't that big. In this painting, there are some pots and kitchen utensils up in the corner, so they probably used this room to cook food as well as use it as a family room. And there was little, if any, privacy in homes back then, because once again, the homes were really small and held many people. Now that you know what George's life at home back in Londonderry was like, I'm going to tell you a little bit about George's war experience. George's war experience could be quite difficult at times. It was difficult because they didn't have much space to hold lots of personal items, so George had to live without most of his clothes and possessions. And the more you brought, the more you had to carry, because they didn't have cars or other motor vehicles that transported baggage back then. Now, deciding what valuable life possessions you're going to take with you on a very important life journey like the war is very difficult, and we all know that. So we know that George must have missed his home life and family a lot. Another reason why George's war experiences could be very difficult was because there was often scarce supplies of food during the war, so they had to eat very conservatively to try and have enough food to eat 3 small meals a day, if that. And sometimes they didn't even have lunch, and breakfast could be as small as a piece of bacon and some poor coffee. Having scarce supplies of food is not only really difficult, but very frightening. That is why George's war experiences could be quite difficult at times. In conclusion, George A. Howard was a Civil War soldier who fought in the 16th Infantry of the Civil War. He had a difficult war life and partially difficult home life. Died at the age of 46 after the war in Vermont.